back in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever the case is for folks. I am Brick Something, and I'm here with Marco Finnegan. I knew him by a different name, but we're going to use your professional name. Dude, we are filming because I won't be able to do the show on the 29th, is it? Because I'm going to be in your neck of the woods at WonderCon.
Yep.
And you're not going to be there.
I'm not going to be there. But maybe I could. Maybe I'll come visit. Maybe I'll see.
This is my friend Marco, who I went to high school with, who is a comics professional / even more important, educator. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How are you? I'm excited to be here, and sorry for dragging this out.
So you and I, it's funny, the whole educator thing, because obviously that wasn't something that you and I, when we were kids or when we were in our 20s as adults, like figuring it out, we were never like, hey, we're both going to end up in a classroom someday shaping and ruining young minds.
That would have been a terrible idea.
I don't actually know this story. So how and when did you start getting into teaching?
The only plan I ever had was draw comics. Like that was the only thing I ever had planned.
Yeah.
So I went to about 7 or 8 different colleges after high school.
Mm-hmm.
No plan to get a degree. It was just, I started going to art school when I was in high school, when we were in high school. You knew that, right? Yeah. So I would go to Otis Parsons. Then I went to the summer we graduated. I went to Fullerton City to do life drawing. Then the life drawing teacher there, that's why I like dropped off. You know, we talk about like just leaving. We're just talking about like shedding skin. Like I literally just said, nothing else matters except drawing. So then I went to Fullerton City. From Fullerton City, the professor there was like, oh, there's this guy at Long Beach City who's an illustrator. You should go take a class with him. So I went to class with him. Long Beach City guy's name was Brian, and the names escaped me. And he was a medical illustrator, but he taught perspective. And so he taught traditional perspective, which, you know, we didn't have the internet. This was 94, right? So you knew what perspective was. Some people taught it, but this guy taught it like traditionally. Like we like stood in front of cars and ruled out perspective and did all that. And and it was cool because in that class was a bunch of guys who wanted to draw comics. So I met this guy named Gennard Serrano who went on to design backgrounds for Prince of Egypt, and he was actually drawing Robotech backgrounds in Robotech comics at 19 or 20. So I was like, oh, cool. I'm amongst my people. So then I decided to go to San Diego because my girlfriend, then wife, Lisa, went to San Diego. So then I went to San Diego State. So that's school number 3 or 4. And then I was at San Diego State and I had realized they don't have a traditional drawing program at all. So they're more like a fine art, almost just not a good, strong program when I was there. So then I said, well, I'm not going to waste time here. So I went to 2 city colleges out there. Ended up going to Laguna College of Art and Design, was driving back and forth, and then went to Cal State Fullerton finally. But again, it was never like no general ed classes were taken. Like it was all like art classes. So it was just, in retrospect, it was pretty good because I didn't have a curriculum to follow. I was creating a curriculum because I wanted, and this ties it back to you, because one of the core memories is being at your house. I think it was your graduation party. Yeah, in Downey.
Yeah.
You're there, Ted's there, our friends are there, and we're sitting there. And I was going to Savannah College of Art and Design at that point. That's where I thought I was going. And I remember talking to Ted, and Ted was saying, well, what are you going to study there? And I said, well, sequential design. He's like, what's sequential design? I go, it's the first year they're doing it, and it's comic books. And he's like, oh, man, like my mind's blown. And we had a big conversation. I think that might have been when I first met him. And so then, you know, that conversation with Ted, and he's like, well, you know, Cal State Fullerton has this great teacher named Don Longaberg who teaches, you know,
remember that.
So
name.
it filed it away because then when I came back to Cal State Fullerton, I took classes with Don, and he had all these drawings by Ted in the room.
Oh, that's right.
Ted was always like he was always like tangentially around, and that summer that after graduation, I don't know if you remember, but that was like the toy summer, because that's where I got that Batmobile, the animated adventures Batmobile.
The
We bought,
big
and again,
long, yeah, that was
yeah, like
beautiful.
I forgot names. I couldn't tell you, the names of people, but I can remember going with you. And you know
Yeah.
what we did? We went to Ted's, but we stopped by Target and bought the Batmobile, and then went to Ted's house and opened it up. And I was gonna put the decals on it, and you and Ted were like, "Don't put the decals. They look so much sicker without the decal." So I don't even know how old Ted was, but I remember sitting in his apartment, and he had that ash can comic that he made of the girl. Again, no names left, but I can picture that cover of the girl on the hoverboard,
Generous. Yeah, it
right?
was.
And
Yep, yep.
so, and so sitting there and going, "This is gonna be my life, like comic books and toys in this cool apartment." And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
kind of like unofficially the anchor that I put on it. That's kind of around the time where I was like, okay, so you can do this as a grown up. You can still be interested in these things as a grown up.
Yep.
And you probably, I need to start a punk band so I can be as cool as these guys. So all but the punk band stuff didn't happen. But that's kind of the moment where I was like, everybody's going somewhere, and I'm not going where I thought I was going, so I better figure it out.
During high school, you were taking art classes. Then you were like bouncing to these different schools because you knew what you wanted to. And I think you always were like, this is the thing that I'm really like passionate about. And it's paid off. I mean, I'm tripping on like even prepping for the show and opening stuff. And there were a couple of things that I was like, oh, I didn't know he did that. That you'll be surprised at the ones that I'm just like extra impressed by. So
yeah,
we're gonna
it's so weird. It makes no sense because there was no plan. Like it doesn't. There was no.
Yeah.
It's just hanging around long enough, I think. Really.
Well, no.
And working the craft. Like it's just.
Yes. I mean, okay, hold on. Sorry. That part probably needs to, like, you're the educator. When you talk to your kids, it's that. It's so funny. You and I are similar. We will say one thing to the students, and then when we're talking about us, like, oh, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Well,
like,
I think even with the kids though, like I think, like looking back, like I could have been as good at 15 as I was at 20 if it wasn't so much like an education, it was access to the education. Like I just found out today that one of my students got into LCAD and got like a fat scholarship. And she's like, oh, you did this. And I go, no, I didn't do this. Like I gave you access to it and I gave you feedback, but I didn't like hold your hand and go draw like this. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like you with playing bass or playing guitar. Like no one sat you down and said, okay, Sergio, this is how you're going to play this song. And maybe they did, but then they didn't teach you to go, now listen to those, those bass licks that you like, and then sit down for hours till your thumb's bleeding till you get them. Like that's the education part.
You know what? I just realized that you and I just started talking. I apologize for not letting you know this, but I usually do say this to folks. This is a pre-record. So the show is streaming at its usual time slot, Sundays at 3:45. And you've probably been like, hey, why isn't he talking to us? My bad. It is a pre-record. We can't see you. I love you. And actually, I can't watch like I normally do when these things are pre-recorded because I'm at WonderCon in Anaheim, California, selling Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figures with Adam. If you're in the chat right now, enjoy the show. Again, this is my friend Marco. We went to high school together. He was the guy who I like talked nerdy stuff with. Do you remember how we started talking about comics? Because that was the thing. Then we had comic book shops that weren't far from us, and we'd stop by every now and then, especially when we had cars. We would go check out the comic shop.
My memory is that you were drawing in a class, and I can picture the way that I don't know how you still draw, but how you drew then. And you were doing, I was probably like Wolverine or somebody, and it was a very clear thing. And it's, I wish I had paper I could show you. It was the little indentation on the eye, on the brow, like right below the brow.
Obsessed with them. I don't know why.
You would do these little like divot things. They were almost like a Chris Bachalo thing, but he wasn't huge yet. And I was like, and that's always how it is. And where I'm like looking, I'm like, oh, that guy's drawing Wolverine. It's pretty good. Like, and you would draw the claws, and you would put like the little like for the knuckle, you put like a little half triangle thing. I was like, oh, like, he's not such a clean line. And it was just probably like in a book. And I think we just started talking that way. And I don't think I had like very specific taste. And I think not to be like a DC Marvel guy, but you were
Yeah.
like an X-Men guy. Like you were like
Yeah.
my X-Men Bible guy. And
Yeah.
I was like more Marvel DC. And I think by like 90, so like, yeah, so probably like freshman year, Image was blowing up and I was really
Mhm.
into those guys. And but I had a blind spot. I had like the X-Men Jim Lee years were my blind spot
Yeah.
because somebody had given me this girl that lived in the apartments with me when I was like in elementary school. Her cousin moved back to Korea and he had been collecting comics and she's like, I don't know what
Okay.
to do with these. So she gave them to me and it was like all the New Mutants run and all the X Factor run
Okay.
and
Those are
and
my
like this
jam.
Avengers run. Yeah, and but none
Yeah.
of the X-Men stuff. So I read all
Right.
that Inferno stuff and Fall of the
Yeah.
Mutants, but without the X-Men stuff. So I never
Yeah.
knew what happened. You could kind of piece it together,
Right.
context clues.
It's
But
pre-internet.
right, and then the Jim Lee X-Men thing had dropped, and I probably had it in class, and you probably talked about it. But that was where I was like, oh, this guy knows about X-Men, and those are the gaps that I needed to fill. I don't
Yeah.
remember and I think that's just the organic conversation when you're in a room of 35 boys and one guy's drawing Wolverine, like you got to be that guy's friend. Like today it would be different because everybody knows who Wolverine is. But I'm like,
Yeah.
this dude knows what's up. And now it's
But
completely different.
yeah, to think that the stuff that you and I would in hushed tones sketch out and have conversations
Right.
because nerd.
Right.
Now it's like it's culture.
Oh,
right.
It's so much so. And my son Dylan was telling me, he's like, it's so weird that you're not like that, like where you're not, and I'm not trying
What do
to
you mean?
say anything as you have all your Millennium Falcons and stuff behind you. He's like, if you walk through our house, like if you walk through your
Oh,
house and you walk through your studio, he's like,
uh-huh.
there's nothing in there that's like, I love comics. Like it's just not, it's become so much of work that I don't have action figures anymore. I don't have,
Sure.
I have a few, but
Yeah.
it's not like compared to people who love them now,
Yeah.
where they have like shrines. Like I've had people send me like pictures, oh, you like comics, and then they'll send me like this room that they have, and it's just like it's like a library devoted to it. And my brain can't wrap its head around it that this dude's, an insurance salesman in
Yeah.
Riverside, and he's got a whole shrine because it was you
Yeah.
and I. Like that was
I
it. It
get
was like
you.
you and
Yeah.
I, and so like it for me. I'm like Sergio's earned the room. Like
Mhm.
you've earned the room. You know what I'm gonna say? Like you've
Yeah.
done the time. But it's like where were all these people who are roughly our age buying comics? And it's so funny to me. What was once the outlier is now mainstream to the point where I was like everybody else watching that Spider-Man trailer, and I'm still like freaking out that we have a Spider-Man movie, and it's the third Spider-Man. Like it's become
Yeah.
like this generation's James Bond. When I remember they were filming the first one around the corner from your house.
Oh, you're talking about the Raimi one, right? Well, the
Yeah,
first
at the
one. Yeah,
Rockwell
yeah,
plant.
yeah, yeah. At Rockwell. Yeah.
Yeah, like we would
Yeah.
drive. I would remember
With
driving to your house
Macy
and
Gray.
seeing, yeah,
Yeah.
and seeing the top of the New York skyline. But I also
What is this?
remember like, the announcement of it and going, it's gonna be bad, like because everything to that point was
Mhm.
bad, and that was one of the first ones that came out where I was like, oh, it's not bad. It's different, but it's not
It's
bad.
funny because you and I are of a generation, and there are obviously heads that are way older than us. But you mentioned that this is the third Spider-Man, and
Right.
so yes, the Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer just dropped. It took them 3 movies to get as close to the Spider-Man that you and I were
Right.
reading right around, which
Right.
is the 90s, which is wild because I think for a lot of folks, it's like, oh yeah, I know Spider-Man. He's Tony Stark's protege who had like,
Right.
it's and
Completely.
so
Yeah.
one, he's down and out, like he's
Yeah.
Peter Parker, like just taken through the ringer. A cloth suit, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just sort of
And
like
he's broke.
he's washing his suit in
Yeah.
the laundromat, and it's just like, oh my god, it took him 3 movies to go back and do some pulls from the comics,
Yeah.
which is wild, which tells you how huge comics have become.
It's so big that it's become like the first Spider-Man movie was made to reach people who don't love Spider-Man,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then the second one was to reach a whole nother demographic of younger people that might not like Spider-Man, like the Andrew Garfield one.
Andrew
Where he
Garfield,
was
yeah.
like he was like a little edgier in punk rock, and he skated.
They
And,
were trying
you
to
know,
almost take the comics and match it with whatever
right, like
the other
he was like
cultures was
cooler,
happening.
right? You know, like
Yeah, yeah.
whatever. And now it's become so much like they're, like you said, they're distilling it down to what makes the character, because of the movie, so many people now know it's like Shakespeare. Like
Mhm.
if you're trying to get a kid to like Shakespeare, you show them the Leonardo DiCaprio one, right? And you're like, oh, now it's cool, and there's guns, and there's, you know,
I
fast
bite my thumb
pans,
at thee, sir.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's all this cool stuff.
yeah.
But if that movie is your gateway drug to Shakespeare, what you want to see at some point is you want to see a pure Shakespeare set in the time
That's an
period, right?
interesting, yeah. So now
And
that's what this is.
that's what,
Interesting.
yeah, and that's what's become. It's like it's opened it up. So like everybody went, what is this thing called Shakespeare? I love this thing. And then they go and they read it and they go, no, I want men playing women parts, and I want tights, and I want to sit on the dirt, and
I want it to smell like ass.
Yes,
No, yeah,
yes,
no,
exactly.
let me. We're getting ahead of ourselves because we don't know if people will act. I don't know how well it's going to be received. So I want to ask you, like, we've actually,
right.
it's been a minute. You and I weren't actively talking when the MCU hit.
Right.
And as it, had its huge culmination and peak in the Infinity Saga or whatever. I'm curious, like, what was, generally speaking, what was that like for you as a long-time comic guy?
I think for the most part, I was like, they made an Iron Man movie. Like I was like, Iron Man. Like, what do I know about Iron Man? Like, I had to go back and be like, it was so sea level that I was like, I guess it tracks. It's cool and it's fun. But the more it progressed, like I remember that first Avengers movie, I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing a crossover in film,
Yeah.
And I loved the Captain America movie, and I loved, all that stuff. But I think what's interesting was just the fact that it was happening,
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking in terms of, well, does this jive with what I think the Avengers are or whatever? Like it was, so I just enjoyed them as they were. And then as it got bigger and bigger and bigger, it ran into the same problems that comics run into. If everything's an event, nothing's an event.
Right.
To bring it back to high school, I remember getting that 0 hour DC thing and taking it over to your house. And I was reading it. I'd read it, then you'd read it, and you'd go, entropy. Like they kept saying entropy in it.
Yeah, totally.
And you like wrote down like how many times they said entropy.
Yeah, and it was a bit much.
I was like, you jerk, you ruined this for me now, because now every time I read it, now it says entropy. For me, I was like, this is cool. And you're like, this is crisis. That's the same thing I think that happened to the movie audience, is that they just were like you can't capture that again. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's smart what they're doing, but I have enjoyed every single one I've seen.
Well, that's what I was going to ultimately ask you. So if you feel like you have enjoyed every single one,
but same here. I've enjoyed every comic I read.
Sure.
Like I just love the genre of superheroes.
It's funny. I've said that exact same thing. It's the same with like, even with toys or whatever. I'm like, yes, I'm a fan of this property and that property, but I'm also just a fan of toys. So I'm kind of curious to see like what they're doing. And every time I approach something that seems novel or interesting,
right.
Yeah, like, I might not tear it down because I'm just genuinely interested in what they're doing. And I appreciate what they're doing. And again, you and I, it was you and I in this school, and
against
it was
the world.
And it was just kind of like, oh my God, like people, they have no idea how good it is right now. So the people that get incredibly critical, like I get it, but also I don't, because I had to sit through some whack stuff and I enjoyed it as a kid. I enjoyed Spider-Man on Electric Company. I enjoyed the live action TV show. I enjoyed the old
cartoon. That one freaked me out, by the way, dude. Have we ever talked about how much that freaked me out? The Spider-Man live action, the one with the
TV show?
The Colt?
Oh,
with the 70s one where he would like spin.
Yeah.
I remember watching that, and there was like a cult, and I was like, I'm gonna get sucked into a cult.
That's the Catholicism that got you.
It was so huge that, and the 70s, Lisa, my wife, always who you know is my wife, but
Yeah.
people don't.
I did. Sure.
She knows that 70s stuff freaks me out. Like anything shot on like 70s grainy film and like
Really
bell bottoms, like it's like it freaks me out, and I think it comes back to that Spider-Man, because it was, I watched it and all I got from it was, oh, someone's gonna give me a pen of some kind. I'm gonna put it on my shirt, on my lapel, and then I'm gonna be in a cult, and that's it. Like I can't tell you the rest of the plot. I just know that you get a little pen, and now you're in a cult. And it happened to Spider-Man.
So there you go, folks. If you're upset at whatever brand new day is going to be, just remember you could have been watching Spider-Man fighting cults. It's true, man. That was the biggest shortcoming of those shows, was that they couldn't see any of the other characters that we loved from the comics, and it was just like fighting whatever gangsters or whatever, and it was
they couldn't pull it off. Like that's the thing too, is like like I don't care how. I mean, I to a degree I care. I want it to be good. But you're seeing Spider-Man swing through New York and jumping on cars and doing this stuff, and it's so clean. Yeah, like it, and I get it. Like people who grew up past 1990. Yeah. These effects, I remember watching movies, like watching The Crow, and where he's running. I know you love it. And he's running across the rooftop and jumping from thing to thing. And I'm going, now do Batman. You know what I mean? Because now you can do it. Like you can pull it off. Like the technology has finally got to the point that people can pull it off. So for me, anything, Thor's hammer flying and and someone throwing a shield and it's bouncing off of people, and like that's ridiculous. Like they're not trying to not be ridiculous with it.
All right, since we started with a Spider-Man, let's go right in here. So here we go. All right, finally get into a piece of ephemera, folks. Sorry, we were catching up again. I mean, we've known each other a while, and we're catching up. This, right? The second I saw this as a thumbnail,
how can you
I was like,
not be hyped? Yeah, how can you not be hyped about that?
Yep, and that's me posting on a friend's Discord. Like, this thing is filled with so many comic book references and love, like visual references, the stuff that are seared in yours and my mind. Like you, like I can see things. I may not remember the names sometimes, but I see it. Ted's the same way, my brother, who folks generally know because he's been here quite a few times. And then Ted actually sent me these.
Those are And you know what's hot about this too, and so it's crazy. It makes me swipe up. First one's awesome, but they used the Eric Larson one. Yeah, that I remember buying. So, like the one below it is Eric Larson,
right here.
That's Eric Larson, and so I remember going to the shop.
I remember this one too.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's not like it's the McFarlane 300 that everybody's seen that's on everyone's T-shirt. It's like this random Eric Larson, who most people don't know because he was kind of in McFarlane's shadow, but who's one of my favorite Spider-Man guys.
I love his Hulk stuff too. He's done the Hulk.
Punisher is awesome, and Savage Dragon. He's done 267 issues of Savage Dragon. Like he's still doing it, and so to see that one, I was like, that's wild. Because it's not like
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like someone at Disney or Marvel or whatever was pulling all these things, and whoever, I don't know what the process was. I don't know if this was the designers or if it was the storyboard guys or who pulled these to use them for reference. But I could promise you that they're Eric Larson fans.
I mean, Destin Daniel Cretton I believe it's pronounced Cretton, but the filmmaker who did Shang-Chi as well is a big nerd too. So I wouldn't be surprised if, because he was really angling to get to do the Spider-Man movies, and Shang-Chi, of course, it gets really fantastic, but for the most part,
it's that one. I love that one.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll just take a look at this, and I'm like, look. I mean, really, like even the character choices we're gonna see these guys on film, like they're MCU versions or whatever, and I assume they're just going to be like little quick montages or something. But just the idea that that's where we're going and getting a sense of like what Peter's been doing while he's just been hanging out on the streets.
It's just cool that like he's in the Spider-Man poses, and I like Tom Holland. He's a good Peter.
I love Tom Holland. Yeah.
And he's, but he's also like, I just found out a couple years ago that he was doing all his own stunts, like doing a lot of flips and stuff. And I was like, that's even cooler. Like,
you're not on the internet much?
No, I'm not.
You hadn't seen it? Okay. Yeah.
Not, but I saw the one where he's running. It's the beginning of the other one where he's on the bridge, and he's rescuing and he's doing parkour off of cars.
Yeah. Like, he shot like all these reels of him sort of like trying to sort of audition and what's the word, kind of like lobby for the job, and just posting all these things that dude's a dancer, brilliant dancer. Yeah. But he's got the physicality too.
Like, awesome. How cool is that we live in a world now where like, oh, you want to play Spider-Man or you want to play Shang-Chi? Well, you better be able to do backflips. You better be able to it's not like it's not CG honestly, it was fine for me when it was CG. But now it's like, oh, you got to be, pretty soon it's going to be like, you're going to have superpowers. Like, you need to be bitten by a spider. And
we could talk about MCU all day, but I was going to say, you can't have powers and be in it because of whatever that act was. Did you see the Wonder Man?
Wonder Man? Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. And I was kind of like,
but just that whole notion that like in the MCU they had to pass a law that said you can't actually have superpowers and be in a film is amazing.
I think I think a missed opportunity is maybe it's not. I don't know, but I would have loved to have seen them lean in to that in the comics and just created a line of comics that were MCU based. I still do not understand the logic of not doing it, and someone at Marvel or DC who gets paid a lot more than I do to think these things, and maybe it's because the rights are everywhere and some are at Sony and some are here, but it's such a great gateway drug, and the comics are doing a better job of making themselves accessible. This year as a high school teacher was the first year in a long time that I saw kids talking and excited about comics, and it was absolute
that's
Batman.
Cool.
It was absolute Batman they were excited about, though.
No kidding.
They were bringing absolute Batman in. They were bringing, and the last time I saw that was with the Ultimate Spider-Man line.
Oh, sure.
That was the last time I saw kids where they were bringing stuff that wasn't manga, that wasn't,
We teach very different populations, friend. Man, my kids care about comics.
They do care,
but don't.
They don't.
They really don't.
And again, I've taught
manga for sure.
Yeah, and manga is still kicking American comics butt in the high school, but that's why it's so. When kids come in and I'm overhearing conversations, they're like, "Oh yeah, you see the new Absolute Joker and how gross he looks," and I'm like,
"Wow, okay."
And it's not like, "Oh, you like comics? Let me tell you this thing about comics I know." It's conversations that are happening by themselves that I'm like, "Okay, like, all right, so that's good." And so that whatever they're doing in the Absolute line, I don't know. Have you read that? Have you read
Wonder Woman? I've only read Wonder Woman, which I love.
It's great. And the Batman one's great too. But the reason I went back and started reading it was because my students were reading it. And I was like, what are you guys into that what did I miss?
Yeah.
And it's pretty smart. Like it's very manga influence in terms of pacing and layouts and design. Like it's really, really smart to do. And I think that it's a good gateway drug.
That's cool. That's really cool to hear. I'm glad to hear that somewhere out there are teenagers who are talking about comics, because it's definitely not happening in my school. And if anything, it is manga, it is anime, which is awesome. It's just the American comics, not so much. I mean, I've got a good chunk of my action figure collection is in my classroom, and just even passing glances, I get a handful of kids a year, maybe at best. So, oh well,
they know who He-Man
that's
is?
More for me.
Do you sit them down and explain who He-Man is?
I do not, but one kid finally this year knew who he was, and it was because of Netflix, which I think is kind of cool. All right. That said, Spider-Man, yay. For those of you who are just catching up, I've known this guy again since high school, and I know I've said that a couple of different times, but what's funny is that there have been a couple of different people from our high school who have actually been on this show, and I've since sort of either met, because these are folks that I didn't know in high school, or reconnected with through this YouTube nerdy space of talking about dorky things and comic books and action figures, etc. So I want to share them with you, because I don't. When I told you that, you're like, "Oh, really?" Like, there's been
I'm
that
curious.
many people. The first one, obviously, and that's this guy. This is my brother. So this is Ted. I don't know if
I know Ted.
I don't. AKA Julius Downey. I don't know if you remember, but Julius Avenue was.
I remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I will. This is an instant follow for me.
So this is him, and he's got a couple of different things. But hey, real quick, I got to tell you, since I do a toy show, so he's also a toy guy. He never stopped collecting. I had to stop just financially. But let me tell you, this thing that he's got right here, that's the thing. Me and my brother are like, did you get this? Sending pictures of each other. Dude, you should see our text messages back and forth. This is a ridiculous Bigfoot that poses. It's just amazing to me. I can pose him like Spider-Man if I wanted to, and he's a big, gigantic chunk of plastic. So
he looks
well
heavy.
done. He is heavy. Who
made that?
This is a guy named Loose Collector, Pinoy from the Philippines. Loose Collector. Okay. He started in the game doing customs, a lot of Marvel Legends customs, and then he has since put out figures of his own. He's actually done a couple of Filipino heroes, like he did Darna. Are you familiar with Darna? Have you ever heard of Darna?
No.
Okay, so she's a Filipino character out of the late 60s or 70s. She's kind of a mix. I mean, this is not to be disrespectful to the character. It's its own unique character, but it is a little bit like if you took Superman and Wonder Woman, because she's an alien, but she's kind of an Amazonian woman badass.
That was a time for comics that is underrepresented, because you had
the 70s.
Yeah, you had the Filipino movement. You had Alfredo Alcala, you had Ruben Nebres, and they were like, I don't know if I've told you, but I'm going through my 70s Marvel rereads.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's a lot of Filipino, they call it the Filipino invasion.
It's funny. I was just talking to Ted about that and looking at that. And Alcala ended up doing all the Motu boxes that we grew up as. No. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah, dude. The minifigures. Sorry. The mini comics that came inside. He drew the mini comics inside. Sorry. Okay. Different artist. Beautiful stuff.
I have this, and I'll send you some pictures later, but I have this portfolio of Alcala's. In the 70s, they would make portfolios, and they would sell them at conventions, and they were prints basically of their work at the size they drew them. And it's like sword and sorcery stuff.
Dude, oh yeah, I want to see that for sure,
dude. It's humbling.
Well, this is our first, from our alma mater or whatever it's called. Ted has been doing these things. He mass produces. Well, it's him. It's literally him. He's his own elf, producing these really cool things for for your displays with your action figures and stuff. Right?
Is that a candelabra?
It is, and he's using his Disney Imagineer magic to make sure that they light up and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. This is gonna be an expensive podcast, because now I want to buy toys.
Yeah, no. You're not gonna buy anything. You've got too many kids to buy things. I'm gonna make you responsible. So there's this, and he does it as Imaginary Action Studios. So he's doing his thing too. It's kind of rad, and
So he's designing these things here.
He's designing, printing, or sculpting, digitally sculpting, printing, painting. He started doing this. The customizing thing, I think he really went heavily into when he moved to Florida. There was a time period when they're, moving all the Imagineers and then Imagineering to Florida. And, he's there by himself. His kid was off to college. His wife was still here in Pasadena. They'd visit, but, go home and
Right.
customize action figures. And then eventually I introduced him to some of these lines that I'm into, especially these fantasy lines, and that has like this rabid following of folks who customize things and make props and dios. And something went off in his brain. He's like, yeah, I want to do this. So
when
he's doing that.
Can I ask a toy question?
Yeah.
Because, I'm tangential to the toy market.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
when people come up with these, right? So when they come up with, like when you came up with yours and everybody, is the lore created first, or is the toy created first?
It depends on yeah, it depends on the line. Everyone is different. But I will tell you that who are the old heads, because they're always like, where's the lore? Tell me the lore.
Yeah.
Because that's what we grew up with. Yeah.
I want to know why Bigfoot needs a candelabra.
So he doesn't. But as far as like modern toy lines, so like the one that I'm sort of referring to, and I should hold that thought. So this figure is a part of the line, from the company that I'm talking about that does all these like torches and diodes.
Let me get like a little side view. Let me get a side view of that guy. Let me get a little. And this is just the jaw. Does the neck turn? No neck turn.
Yeah, no. I know action figures. These are not our action figures when we were a child. However, okay, so this show, I hope folks are enjoying it. But I'm just hanging out with my friend who I haven't talked to in a while, who I know has been so busy drawing. He's been real good about not spending money since you got married on action figures. When
Lisa and I got married, we were as broke as most people are when they first get married. Yeah. And it was kind of like a choice I made where I said I could keep buying action figures or I could keep buying comics occasionally. And so comics won. And action figures got better.
Yeah,
That's what happened. They got so much cooler. But then my son Dylan, who's 20 now, is a huge action figure guy. I think you met him at WonderCon last year.
I did meet him at WonderCon last year.
And he knows all the customization stuff and and so through him I'm vicariously get to see the new stuff because he'll send me stuff to look at. But I'm enamored with the idea of people creating their own line. Anytime someone takes their love of something and makes things like that is amazing.
Let me answer the question by saying there is a connection to stuff that you remember. So the line that I'm referencing where there's like they just had such a rabid following to the point where people want to customize is this line called Mythic Legions. And it's actually by the studio called Four Horsemen Studios. Who do you remember when we were into these action figures and we were blown away that Todd McFarlane was making toys?
Yes. Yeah.
So he had a couple of sculptors and other folks in his stable that met each other, and they were all a part there. And they eventually, they worked together and eventually branched off and made their own studio called Four Horsemen Studios. And so they were 25, I think 27 years ago now. They started as a studio. 12 years ago, they started this action figure line through Kickstarter. And so this is theirs. These happen to be the same guys who also brought back He-Man in two big ways. There was in 2008, they did this line called Masters of the Universe Classics, and they did all the sculpting and art direction of that.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yes,
that was them. And then when they tried to relaunch He-Man as sort of a modern show in the 2000, I forget what it's called, but they called it the 2000X Mike Young Productions. He was like on Cartoon Network, and they bounced it around.
Not the Kevin Smith one.
Not the Kevin Smith one. This is decades before. They did the action figures for it.
Oh, that's cool.
So with Mattel. So they've been in the game for a while. They made their own thing. They do have a lore. So they do have a world that's sort of been built around it. And it comes up in like blog posts and stuff. They're finally going to put out a book with it. But so it doesn't exist in a way that people consume the lore first. And then you go buy the figures. Really, it was figures first, and we're going to tell you a story along the way. And they structured their line so that with each wave, it sort of let you into a corner of the world that was like an important part of the story. So they did that. And then the one that you're referencing that I didn't do a help with, and that's Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. Those guys, that started as a story. Jason Bienvenu comic book guy, and he wanted to do comics, and he had the story, and he wrote one version of the story, did an independent graphic novel, his own art. And then a couple years later, he was like, you know what? I want to do action figures. He did action figures. And then he was like, I want to redo the action figures because the first ones he did were smaller. He's like, I want to do kind of this modern style that would go well with my G.I. Joe classifieds. So he redesigns the characters, and that's the line that I'm sort of helping with now with marketing and stuff. That had a comic book that it's beautiful comic book, totally independently done. He tried to get a publisher to pick it up, but this is like, right. It's the comic industry. It didn't make sense. So he's like, I'm just self-published. So, God, I want to say maybe 8 issues now. First story arc is over. Second story arc is starting, and it's a fantastic story. That said, most people don't know that it exists as a comic.
I will track it down.
Yeah, and I'll get you copies. I need to get you copies. Yeah. But it's really cool. And he works with an artist out of Indonesia who is incredibly talented. So I don't know. So it has its own life, and then he's doing the action figures. So it depends. It's from line to line.
I'd like to point out to your viewers that I think, and I could be wrong, but I think I gave you your first custom action figure.
You actually did, and it was at my graduation, right?
And it was for some reason it was at a beach. I don't know why we were at a beach,
but
I don't know why. And I
it was before we went off to college, right?
Yes, I spray painted a Grendel onto a Ken, and it never dried. Somewhere it's still wet.
It's still in my mom's garage somewhere.
It's still not dry. Still don't touch it. It still will not dry. And I'm just pointing out to you that at some point when the world finally ends, they're gonna dig through stuff and they're gonna
be what is with this wet Grendel?
Why is of all the things on this decimated planet, why is this thing the only thing that is still moist? The only sign of life. Yeah. That was not it, but let
me share this with you, since you know that I love Grendel. This is a figure the same guy who did the Bigfoot.
Oh, that's such a
Grendel.
Such a clean design. Like, just aesthetically, the Grendel design is so smart. It's
my style, man. Less is more, sleek. You see the silhouette. It's
just a nice silhouette. It's just got the right balance of black and white. It works good in color. It works great in black and white.
It's classic dancers too, right? Like the white gloves, black, white, so you can see
Michael Jackson.
So good.
And it works well when he kills people and red splatters onto his hands. Like it's one of those designs that that I wish I made so I could sell action figures for $71.49.
I will say
that's clean.
Yeah, like they've gotten a lot better. They've also gotten a lot more expensive than you and I were buying. So anyway, that was a segue.
I got Dylan a Spider-Man last Comic-Con, and it was like $120, and it had like every hand pose, and I don't know the company, and I feel bad because it's a great company, but they have a booth at Comic-Con every year, and they have like every character, but really detailed ones, and I'll find out the name, and you can shout them out later. Yeah. But it's one of those things. It's so cool because I remember playing with my Quick Kick G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Who was basically Bruce Lee, and my I didn't even have Snake Eyes, couldn't find him. I had Beachhead and pretended he was a ninja.
Yeah, I mean,
and I remember playing and wishing that they could bend more so they could and you bend them to a point, and then that rubber band broke in their belly, and their intestines came out, and that's when you had to bury them, and it was over. Like, that's how you killed them, is their intestines.
The game has changed, man, and it's really neat because just like movies, right? The nerds are making movies. The nerds are making TV shows. Well, people our age are making these toys because...
Are they making them for people our age, or are they making them accessible?
Generally speaking, it's really like it's the adult collector. It's not even so much like, are they intending to, or are they trying to reach younger audiences, because I think a lot of them are like Animal Warriors of the Kingdom is. But like, who's buying? Like, our students, younger kids. It's screens. They just don't. And I actually sometimes we lament it as if it's a terrible thing, and I get it. But also, these kids aren't collecting massive piles of plastic and paper like you and I did, or clothes. You know what I mean? So
I just love the idea that they're so posable to the point that we dreamed of, that I hope somewhere, someone is playing with them and kicking them and doing all the things that we wished our toys would do. Because I know that when I got my hands on Dylan's Spider-Man, he went through some stuff. You know, he had, and so I think, like I said, I don't have very many, but I do have one Daredevil's my guy. So Daredevil and Nightwing are my guys. Like, so I think I have 2 Daredevil action figures and 1 Nightwing action figure. That new Superpowers one that I think my kids got me. And when I'm working and I'm thinking, they're moving around the desk. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's still my favorite thing to do with them. Like and now I want to get a giant Bigfoot one. And
no, you don't, because then when you see the price tag on that one,
more than $74.94, I'm guessing.
Maybe, Anyways, back to this. Ted's been on the show. He went to the high school with us. Erwin Papa, shout out to him. I think he's a year younger than you and I. Cool Pinoy dude. I think he's now in Long Beach. Is it Long Beach or Lakewood? I always forget. I'm sorry, Erwin. But he does an event in Long Beach for sure. But he's like you, a comic book artist. So hey, there's 2 that came out of our school. He's currently got this Kickstarter that's going on right now that funded really quick. He does a lot of indie stuff. I love his stuff, man. Super expressive, great line work. If you were intrigued by my little league, like this guy, it's just really cool stuff. I love this hatching and everything. Yeah, he does
another follow. No, I think it's cool. I was just in Long Beach. Long Beach has a good comic book scene.
Oh, there you go.
I had a signing there. Lakewood, nice.
He's a Lakewood dude and does a bunch of stuff in Long Beach. His stuff is cool. Yeah, check him out for sure. Here his Kickstarter that shot past its $1,400 goal, but he still got half a month to go. Is that something you've ever considered? Is like trying to independently produce a book?
I haven't, because I don't think I could take the rejection. And that's not me doing a bit. Like, I really don't think I could handle it. But these guys who do this stuff, and girls and everybody who do these things, it's such a testament. It's so indie, like, not to be that guy. Like, I wish I could, and I don't think I have the social media presence, and B, the savviness to do it. I was approached to do one by like a Kickstarter like company. I think it was, I can't remember what it is, one of those, and they wanted me to do one for my jazz drawings. I'd done a bunch of jazz drawings, and I was like, nobody wants jazz drawings. And
dude,
so I
you
didn't
were
do
so wrong. But yes, I understand the concern, or maybe it's a different deal.
It's such a unique problem that I have, that I get to draw for money, that drawing for not money and in the hopes of money freaks me out a little bit.
I totally hear that. I hear that. I get that.
It's like, I imagine, like, when like, if someone is in a band and they're like a studio musician, like, that's how I kind of think of myself. Like, I'm a and I'm breaking away from that more, but I do feel like I'm a studio musician, where, like, you need someone to draw something and you need it done on time, and I need to pay for 2 college tuitions. So I'm
that's
your guy.
Real though. Yeah, and that's real.
So it's this weird, unique problem to have, because I think when people find out that I draw comics, they're like, "Oh, you draw Spider-Man?" No, Batman, still no. Like Vampirilla, yes. And so part of the thing was that I did James Bond, and James Bond is wonderful to have on your resume because you can say I drew James Bond.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you don't have to explain that there are other comics besides Batman and Spider-Man.
Right.
So it's a good calling card comic.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. But like, yeah, like this stuff, this is people doing what they want to do.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And I'm a corporate sellout. I don't know what to say.
It's funny because yeah, like you've known me since 9th grade, doing the punk band and like getting into that world pretty heavily, and then just let's just do our own band. And a lot of that, I don't know what it is, but there was something about it that just seemed so exciting to me that I just needed to try. And yeah, you're right. I hadn't really thought about, it's not for everyone, for sure. And
no, it's risky. And I tie so much of my I don't want to say identity to comics that if it failed, I think it would hurt me. but I've sold projects to publishers. We've had things optioned. There's some stuff that's been optioned that I can't talk about, that been
you've
optioned
done
to
some
take,
great stuff, man.
and so I've like made like a living at it, and it's cool. But Kickstarter and like doing it all like that, like I have so much more not, I don't want to say more respect, but it's such a different lane. It's like somebody being in a studio musician wishing they could do their punk record, and saying, who cares if I pay the bills with this? It's like there's a purity to it.
That's cool, man. It's cool to hear the different take, and I'm sure, but you're corporate doing great work, and we will get to your great work. You're not a corporate sellout.
Corporate sellout.
We are going to get to your great work, and I just realized, like, I'm looking at the time, and I know we've got limited time. But here, let me just quickly say, this guy, I don't know if you, I didn't know him in school, but he also, Matt, Collectible Fun, went to our high school as well. He does a show called Latin Legions, which
when did he? He graduated?
He 2 years after us, I think. Erwin was 1 year after us. He was 2 years after us, and he had a brother that was, I think, in our class. And we can figure that out online. But they do a show called Latin Legions. That's about that Mythic Legions line I was telling you about, and that's the other piece. Like, I know you can probably find some affinity with, but just the notion of like who is out as nerds and who's creating things and who's doing things like shows, and this notion that there's a Latin Legions for like Latinos who are into this thing. Like, it's such a cool, we mentioned Shang-Chi earlier. Like, who knew that would be on the big screen? And I know that that's something that you and I never really talked about growing up and going to school in Bellflower, super explicitly, right? Sort of like, what's it like to be a kid of color, like growing up in this time in the 80s and 90s where we don't really ever get to see our stories told, and now it's happening. Like we just, I was elated to see Sinners win as much as it did the other night. And I'm just like, and so much of your work, I swear, which we're getting to, I'm going to try and zoom us along on this, but how cool is it that like there's Latin Legions and Matt's hanging out with his folks, and they invite the Pinoy on to hang out. But so folks should check him out. Again, this dude, go ahead.
I don't think, but just real quick on that point is, I don't think we ever thought it was possible. So we were such outliers because of comics that to think I would like to see a Filipino superhero or a Chicano superhero, like that was too much. Like,
and yet you just mentioned how so many, like, DC Comics and so many others thrives because of artists from the Philippines. It's just it's a weird thing, and we're all learning so much these days, and I can't wait to see it grow. Let me zoom through these guys because I definitely want to at least end by looking at your stuff. This is Ralph, who used to go by Denny when we were a kid, but he went to, I remember him, like him, I knew the best. He's a year younger than us. He was from Raymond. So like I knew him and his family for years. And so kind of just lost track. And then I was in this nerdy space and we're chatting and I was like, hey, you're from Downey? Like, I don't know how Downey got mentioned.
Right.
And yeah, and then we put 2 and 2 together, and hardcore nerd. Here he is dressed up as a dude from Alien, and he's super into Green Lantern. He's even got like a Green Lantern show called Lanterns Live on
That's
YouTube.
dope.
So like like that, somewhat oppressive, incredibly oppressive, but other folks had different experiences. All boys school that you and I went to, run by the Roman Catholics, was a challenge.
What's cool though?
But there's some
what's
nerds.
Interesting too is, and as I'm thinking, is that I think there was this guy named Gil Silva who was, I think he was like 3 years older than us, and he was a football player, and one of the toughest dudes I ever met. And and his mom had passed the summer before I met him, so I guess the summer before senior year. And the way I met him is somebody was making a "your mama" joke on the stairs, and he beat the hell out of the guy, And it wasn't made towards him; it was made towards someone else, and he just again lashed out. And so I was like, "Well, I'm gonna be nice to this dude because we walk down the stairs, all the time together." And so somehow we started talking, and this was before I was driving, so it must have been freshman and sophomore year. And he was a big comic book guy. And so one day he showed up and picked me up after school, and we went, and he took me down to, without a car, everything's far. He took me to like Beach Comics in Huntington Beach, and that was like his shop. And he was like the toughest dude I had met to that point, and he was a huge comic book guy. And then like Connor Flanagan, remember Connor Flanagan? Like
I remember the name.
And he would come with me.
That's right.
Yeah, he would come with me to the comic book shop on Wednesday before practice, because Wednesdays we'd have a late practice. So Wednesday was the day I would run out, go buy comics, and come back to practice. And he would tag along. And what I realized is that
you guys would drive down to Huntington Beach, or just to like,
we would go because we had a break, right? Like we had instead of practice starting. Wednesday night was always nighttime practice.
Got it.
So instead of practice starting immediately after school, it was like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So we had 2 or 3 hours, and everybody would go do whatever they had to do. And I was like, it's Wednesday, I got to go buy comics. Like, I don't know what the rest of you guys got to go do. I need to go buy some comics. And so he would tag along with me, and he became a big comic book guy from those things. And, and we would just go to different shops. And so I remember he loved Shadowhawk, and he was like, do you have any more of that Shadowhawk stuff? And I was like, yeah, I got some Shadowhawk for you. And then he found that he loved Predators and Aliens, and he got into those.
I talked trash about Shadowhawk here before, but sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. I mean, it was the first glow in the dark cover. What do you want? Like, come on.
Sure, I know.
Come on. It actually wasn't the first. There was a Daredevil one, but it was Shadowhawk. He just broke people's spines. That was his whole thing.
Anyway, sorry. I totally.
You went into Shadowhawk. You went into Shadowhawk.
Because McFarlane's doing a figure.
A Shadowhawk? I have the old one in this garage, feet away. There's 2 stories boxes of, McFarlane's first Spawn, Malbogia, Angela. All that whole first run, that Max figure was a thing of beauty. That first Max figure, and you were, I don't know if you remember, you were always like the positive peer pressure to buy things. Like we'd be somewhere.
I still do that. That's what this whole show's about. I just need you to understand. It's like
you need that, and I was like, I don't know, dude. You're like, no. You need another Spawn one. You need another Spawn, but this time the cape is shredded. And like the
of course, there you go.
And he's got the shoelace holding his face together.
Yeah, I hear no lies so far. I think
and then you were also the one where we get back to wherever we're going. Like, you need to open that. Like, it needs to be open.
Because I need to see it.
I do need to open this. I do need to open this thing, and I just don't
open your toys.
I just do not go back and look at how much those things are worth closed. Because I will be mad at you, because I think those are the few moments that I played with them. Like we look at them, we'd put together, and then they'd go sit on a shelf, and I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't have opened them. Yeah, well.
No, I think the joy you got out of them would probably be way more than the value of what it would have been. I can't find the Shadowhawk I wanted to show you, but they're doing like a. Oh, here you go. Check this out, dude. Wait, this is Shadowhawk, right? Am I tripping?
Let me see.
No, it is, right?
He's basically Wolverine's. Yeah, that's Shadowhawk.
Yeah,
That's Savage Dragon. Yeah,
it is.
That's Savage Dragon.
Yeah. So there's a Savage. There's an Eric. They are doing a Savage Dragon, which comes with a more, more current look as well as the classic look. McFarlane's also doing a Shadowhawk, which, again, whatever. Sorry,
what did Shadowhawk do to you? What happened?
We'll talk later. And then he didn't do anything. I'm just a hater. And then they're doing Hellboys. You kind of see the Hellboys in the back there.
Yeah, so Hellboy is another one of those designs like Grendel that is just perfect, and it's just one of those designs that's just iconic. And I used to think nobody but Mignola should do it, but now I love seeing different takes on it. And he's one of those guys, like another,
Oh, he's fantastic. Yeah, his stuff broke my brain in terms of what comic books, because we were so used to like the Marvel style and then sort of variations of that. Even when McFarlane was doing his take on it, or whatever, like Liefeld just kind of did his own thing, it was still that hyper,
And
Marvel
what's
thing.
What's neat about Mike is that he wanted to be those guys. Like he wanted to be Bernie Wrightson, and he couldn't. And then he started off as an inker at Marvel, and he was so bad at inking other people's stuff that the editor, I think it was Roy Thomas, said, just pencil it. Like you're not good at the inking stuff. Maybe you can just pencil. And so he penciled it, and nobody could ink them great. I think Craig Russell inked them pretty good. But it was when he did that Batman Dracula thing, everybody went, holy shit, what is this? And it was him going, F it, I'm going to do things the way I want to do it. And I've met him once, and I got to go see the premiere of his documentary, and he was there, and it was this old theater in LA, and it was a double feature of The Bride of Frankenstein and then Mignola's documentary. And he's the nicest, humblest guy. And I heard the story's legendary, where people go, oh, I use your style because it's so fast and it makes me fast, like drawing like you. And he goes, can you give me the secret? Because he is so meticulous and slow that everything he does is designed to where the last letter in the lettering balloon will go. Nice. It is almost scientific in execution.
It's funny you say that, because he reminds me of like a filmmaker or like a cinematographer, the way he approaches shots. And I can imagine him really like thinking about how everything fits on the page.
And the page, and not just how it fits, but how where you will go next, and how you'll get there, and where what you will read first. And those little panels that he does of like a bird just sitting on a branch, it's to make you pause for a second before something. Like everything it's some people cut corners, he like adds corners.
That's what I mean. Like when I said he broke my brain, it just really changed what was possible. And then I got really into design, like graphic design, and less is more. And he was like, oh my god, this is great. The drama of the shadows and his splash of color here and there, fantastic stuff. But you know who else is good, dude? This guy.
Nah, he's right.
This guy, look, this is the name I remember. Marco Finnegan Magallanes. What's up, dude? I did that with the Espanol. Magallanes. Here we are, dude. This is your website, and you have been a busy dude. And so I always like to look at people's websites, because, Instagram has become a repository of just stuff.
Yeah.
But at
just know that my children make fun of my website, by the way.
Well, I
I'm
got
just pointing it
paid
out.
to do websites like this, a ridiculous amount of money to do websites is sort of understated and simple as this. But my point is this. This is where you choose what you want to present to people. That's why I want to start here. So I went to books, right? And here we go. Let's take a look at some of the things, and we'll just kind of scroll through and look at some of your art. But this is the most current work that you've got going on. I've got mine.
Can we point out how the text bleeds into the oh, nice. Look at you. Can we point out how the text bleeds into the image?
Yeah, no, I saw that too. And
can you fix
I
that?
wasn't going to judge too hard.
If I give you my password, can you fix that?
Probably pretty easily. Is that the kind of thing that your kids are messing with you about?
My son Justin, who you know of and Ted knows, laughed so hard. And it was
that aside, damn it, Justin, we're talking about his art. Look at this, man. So this is this is your created character.
That is what that is the culmination of everything I love. That's
Calavera PI.
That it's almost like closing a chapter for me of I can't believe I got to do this. What do I want to do next? Because it's everything I wanted to do in a comic, and people let me do it and paid me to do it, and it got done. And I want to come back and visit him at some point, but it's just one of those things where I can't believe that I did it. Like, I can't believe that they let me do it because it's so specifically me. You know,
I will definitely come back and look at some of this art as we go through the IG. Yeah. Are you good on time? Because I know
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
You're sure? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I'm gonna check on my child and make sure that he has a ride home.
Okay, text away. But I just wanted to go through the books, and then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about each of them. We've got Calavera PI, which is a original character. This one I don't know much about, but this is Morningstar. This is it says inspired by the works of King and Spielberg. Who's the writer on this?
The writers on this are Tim Daniel and DB Andre. And so this was something that me and Tim did. We started it like 11 years ago. It got picked up by a company, and then the company just kind of let it slide. And then so Mad Cave came along and Tim pitched it to them, and
it was before Mad Cave. Okay.
And then it came and they let us do it again. And it's one of those things that we kind of developed, and then DB came on board and kind of helped like smooth it out. And it's good. It's very much like if you like Stranger Things, if you like Close Encounters, it's that kind of thing. And it's the star of this, and I'm blanking on the names. Can you zoom in on the cover real quick?
Yeah.
Is the colorist, whose name is Jason Wardy. Yeah. See, I'm telling you, names are gone. And it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever done because of Jason's colors.
I love it. I'll send it to you. I love the color work on this and some of the art that's on your IG that we'll take a look at in a second. Yeah. But I really love, speaking of Mignola, the Sturm und Drang, the light and dark, right? The intense. That was something I learned at Bosco thanks to Mr. Baldwin, who passed away, and then Mr. Cross. AP Art History. You didn't take AP Art History, did you?
I did not take AP Art History, but I did. Yeah. But Mr. Baldwin was the first teacher who encouraged me in comics and let me do a comic for the Telltale Heart instead of writing a paper.
Oh, dope!
It's terrible.
That's cool.
Comic, and he should have given me an F.
Dude, just stop. You're your worst critic. Bad. I know we all are. Yeah, but however old.
It's objectively bad.
Okay, well, you know what's not objectively bad? Your 007, which I'll confess I haven't read yet, and I have it. I'm gonna have to go check it out and read it. But it's. I think it's so cool that you did a 007. Like you said, this was a great calling card comic.
It's awesome because I didn't know that they were doing them. And I had to audition with it. And with the way that you audition is you do a couple of sample pages.
Sure.
And I was like, no one's going to let me draw 007. And so I was like, but if I were to draw it, I would draw it in like kind of like my retro noir style.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And they went to the estate, the Ian Fleming's estate, and they looked at it and they liked it. And so in the first issue, James has to decide to try to save this guy, and I made me the guy. So I don't make it through the first issue.
Oh, but I love that you got to
Spoiler.
draw yourself in a James Bond comic. That's dope.
Heck yeah, and die. And it's funny because I referenced, I did all the reference poses, and in one of them I referenced it, and my editor's note goes, "That guy's head's too big," and I was like,
Tell it to my mom.
That's my head. And I was like, oh yeah, that was just a bad drawing. Let me shrink it down. And I was like, yeah.
Oh man. Well, Finnegan's artwork takes no prisoners, says
I really
CBR.
I really didn't take any prisoners.
Not even himself. I love that.
And I love that there's books that I left off of the website because I haven't updated it.
Yeah. Well,
update your website, kids.
This one I love. No, don't worry about it, dude. No one's checking website. They're out there looking at your socials.
That's right.
This thing is fantastic. I'm so glad you told me that this came out. Of course, I have many interests and so this is totally right up my alley. Art is fantastic. I've shown this a couple of times on the channel. Okay. But the story is really, and so I actually wasn't familiar. You told me, was it Tanana
Reeve and Stephen is her husband, and Tanana Reeves is probably, I would say, easily
beautiful stuff.
Top 5 living horror writers right now. Just absolute gem of a human being, first of all, and one of the most brilliant minds I've ever had. And they actually made a film of The Keeper, a short film that is going to be on the circuit. Okay. And it's and her and Steve directed it. So so it's really it's a great book. I think it's one of the better things I've done.
Well, we were talking about, that's what I'm a graphic guy too, but also we were talking Grendel, and this is very like Matt Wagner,
Yep. That's a good
page. But then when it breaks, it's so cool, man. Such a perfect moment.
Yeah, I like that page. That's it. And what's nice is that I had the screenplay to work from, so all the layouts and stuff were just me doing me, which is how when I get to lean into that stuff, that. Yeah. But I still like that page, which is rare. Stuff.
These could be
also good page. Also
each of these. Yeah. See, there you go. Okay, good. I'd like to hear you talking about
this one. I have enough distance from this now, I think, that I can enjoy it. It takes a while, and then it'll come. But I like that page.
I love just the start. Again, it's my thing. Less is more, but I think there's just so many really great choices in terms of color fields, and then the use of the I love you did it for the what was it called again? Morningstar. The use of the halftone dots, because I'm old and know what those are, and I was a printmaker, so I appreciate those. And then this is the first thing that you told me about. So this was like
first thing I wrote.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was the first thing I wrote.
And
I still like it. I think and the title is hilarious because there was no title, and me and my editor Greg just kept calling it The Lizard in a Zoot Suit Book. And at some point, we just kind of said, what's the title? And I go, I don't know. We just keep calling it The Lizard and Zoot Book. He's like, let's just call it that. And I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah, dude, it's perfect. It's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What are you hiding?
It is. It's E.T. during the Zoot Suit riots. That's my pitch.
Yeah, done. It's just I need to know that there's Zoot Suits in it and there's a lizard in it. Boom, all done.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one.
Well, this one, I've taught pieces of it when in an ethnic studies course. So that's why I was especially interested in this, and had The Keeper come out, I could have probably used that in some way, shape, or form, and definitely Calavera PI. So that's I gotta say, to our comments earlier, you're doing it, man. I saw that you were you're working in, was it Latino or Latinx a comic convention that you went to or something?
Yeah, there's a great one in Long Beach.
At
the museum there, the Latin Art Museum. I forget what the name of it is. And
I saw a Siqueiros exhibit there a long time ago. But yeah,
it's a great place, and once a year they have a wonderful show, and it's one of the few shows I do. that I actually will table at and do that whole thing because it's such a great crowd of people and it's really family oriented. So that book sells really well there because it's a great book for kids, I think. But it's fun. Like it's my buddy Lalo Alcaraz, political cartoonist, is there, and so I get to hang out with him, and then Jaime Hernandez from Love and Rockets is there, and I get to stare at him and wish I could think of something to say. I don't geek out very much. I am a puddle when Jaime is there, and I think in the last 2 years, one time I said, "I like your work," and he's like, "Okay, thanks, man." And then last year I got brave, and I said, "I really like your work," and it's funny because he's the most mellow, humble dude, but he is like he's Mignola status in terms of just every time I look at something he's drawn, I learn something, and it's just it really, not to be romantic about it, but he designs a page and it takes my breath away. Like it really makes me go, and Mignola does that too, and to be almost half a century old and to be in awe of another living human being is weird to me.
That's great.
And I there's a few of them, and one thing that my sons have always been really good about is when we're at places where people like that are there, they're like, you need to go tell them, like you need to go tell them how much your work means. And Tim Sale, who drew Batman, the Long Halloween and a bunch of Spider-Man stuff, and just was about 20 years ago, I met him at Comic-Con. I was really young, maybe even more than that. I think it was even before I was married. And so at least 25 years. And I talked to him, and this was before he was huge. Like he wasn't super big, so he was still approachable. And so we were talking, and we shared that we were both colorblind. And he talked to me about how he applied color to his work regardless, and was kind of just basically like, fuck it, man. Like you got to just do it, and you can see enough color. And it was just one of those moments, like, which he, I'm sure, instantly forgot afterwards. And so we were at a show a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, and he was there, and my sons are like, "That's Tim Sale." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And they're like, "You love Tim Sale?" I was like, "Yeah, I know. Like, let's keep walking." And like, you need to go tell him, like, you love him. Like Dylan and Justin were like, you need to go tell this guy how important his work is to you. Like, if you don't, you're gonna regret it. I was like, okay, but you guys can't come because you're gonna laugh. And like, I become a teenager when I'm hanging out with these two, at shows, and they're like, okay, we'll stand over here. I go, seriously, don't record me. This is, your father being humble in a weird way. And I went over and I just told him, I stood there, awkwardly, and I felt like I had suddenly developed freckles and had braces and, and a retainer. Mr. Shale,
I love you.
I just wanted to tell you how important your work is to me, Mr. Shale, and then run away.
Turn around, run away.
And I did. I told him, I was like, look, I just want to tell you, and I bought something from him, of course, so it wasn't weird. He had to, and he couldn't, while he was signing it, so he couldn't run away. And I said, I just want you to know that, you're a huge inspiration to me, and the reason I'm doing this stuff. And about a year later, he passed away. And it was one of those things where I was like, thank God I did that. I feel like, for me, he probably heard that 150 times that day, right? But for me, if that had happened and I hadn't had an opportunity to say that, I would have had a little bit of regret. And so those are those things where it's like, they're just people. Like he's got bills and he's got illnesses and he's got everything else that we have. And we forget how much like those nice things mean to them. Yeah. Like how much a He-Man toy means to you, for whatever reason, as someone else can look at it and go, why does this guy have toys? Like he's an adult, and but there's in the ephemera, is that how you say it?
Yeah, sure.
Good enough. Like to bring it back to that, like there is a connection to that stuff, and it's the same. It's the way that people have always had a connection to gods and religion and politics and everything, that there is a connection for whatever reason that speaks to you for it. And it's nice when it's not a malicious thing. Sure. Like it's the equivalent of like when during the salon days of painting, people would come all over to see, Matisse unveil his new painting.
Mm-hmm.
They were just looking at it. They were just sitting there looking at it and going, wow, okay, let's go. And that's what we get to do on a regular basis. And we kind of take it for granted, I think, that because we're surrounded by so much of it. So going back to
that's exactly it. Yep. The mechanical age.
Like, I'm not going to be mad at a Spider-Man movie because I'm just so happy that there's a Spider-Man movie.
Right.
And I think, I don't know how your kids are and how into this stuff your kids are, but it's become a thing. Yeah. So like my son, like Dylan, used to go to school in middle school with a Spider-Man costume underneath his clothes and have a mask and like let it fall out, oops, like at like 7th grade and 6th grade, and his best friend Andrew would do the same thing, and it's so for me to see that in Spider-Man, I don't care, I don't care if it's the Spider-Man that I love or not, or the Spider-Man that I grew up with, or if he's married to Mary Jane, or Gwen Stacy lives or dies. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that there's a Spider-Man movie that I can go to with my kid.
Yeah. And to tie it back to some of the things, like the fact that there is a lizard in a Zoot suit comic, right, or that Keeper exists, and like who's centered in these stories.
Right.
He's got Zendaya as MJ, and he's got Pinoy Ned as his best friend. It's just like, this is such a cool time. There's so many reasons to just enjoy and appreciate what's happening. So,
well, how cool is Ned's grandma?
Hell cool yeah, dude!
And that's the stuff where, I grew up. I had friends that were Filipino, and their grandmas were Ned's grandma, and having a Chicano hero or Chicana heroes or whatever.
Yeah,
it's just an extension of that, and I think there was so, like we talked about with the Filipino invasion, and with the Latinos that worked in comics, and African Americans that work in comics, to have to draw themselves as victims or villains,
right?
Or stereotypes. Like I love, unashamedly, I love the Shang-Chi comic from the 70s for the design aspect of Paul Gulacy.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's objectively very bad. Like, it's there's a reason why you can't find it on streaming and they don't repackage it and all this stuff, because it's not something that you want. So it's nice to be able to go, I really can proudly say that I love that Shang-Chi movie, because it, at the core, the story's there, but it's made by people who saw themselves in a piece of that Shang-Chi and said, let me show you how he would be through our lens. And I think we're seeing more of that, and I hopefully we'll see more. It's getting to that point where I'm excited about everything that comes out, because that comes through a specific lens, like Sinners. I teared up in the music scene.
Yeah, man.
Because of that through line. And
same with the Oscars the other night. And I was like, oh, because of the through line, and also who was being held up at that moment in stage. Like some of those folks, I was like, oh my God, of course you would have them there. And it was fantastic.
Like K-pop Demon Hunters won. And my friend Rad Seacrest and his wife is Maggie, the director, and
you said Rad Seacrest?
That's his name. Yeah. Isn't that a great name?
No, I'm just like, it just went to like, at first I heard Ryan Seacrest, and then it was like, wait,
his name is Rad Seacrest, and he's a guy that I've known for 20 years, and has just loved storytelling, and and for them to have that moment in a very specific, it would be great anyway. Like if they won an Oscar for Toy Story 8, that still would be cool, because it's hard work, but to have her win for something that is so specific to her, and it's like Denzel Washington always says that the more specific you make something, the more generally appeal. And I think Sinners and K-pop Demon Hunters are testaments to that. Garfield is not a testament to that.
Hey, so this is where I didn't know that this was a thing. And I got actually really excited. And so I went, and can I also say how cool is this, that I can search your name at
that does
at the library? and I can
What's
see a
cool is
body of work.
what's cool is when I get recommended my own books. I'm not gonna lie
Oh,
to you.
that's
That
awesome.
yeah, that's cool.
I
Check them
love that
all
this
out.
stuff is there, dude. This is
That's cool.
rad. Yeah,
Oh yeah, Night
I've
People. I
got,
did that one.
yeah. So I've got stuff coming in on hold, and I'm a big library fan. It's funny. It's like once I had kids, it was like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
library thing. But
Does your
anyway,
library have the comic book app? That like my library has this thing called
it
Comic
has
Books
Kindle.
Plus,
It does not. No, it doesn't.
and
But
it's
they have
it.
comics on there occasionally.
So this is my library has this. So it's called Comics Plus, and it's every Wednesday it updates with the new digital comics that come out. Plus, it
No
has a
way.
huge library and catalogs of
They
all.
probably
Yeah,
do. I just didn't know about it. I gotta check
it's
that
awesome.
out.
Yeah, and it's one of the coolest things, and it's my every time my students are streaming or pirating comics, I go, "You have a library card. Don't do that anymore."
Well, hey, stop distracting me from talking about your stuff because I think this is actually really cool. So this is actually from the library.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, but like, and then you got your little shout out to your kids. I love that. But
yes.
just how cool is it to like? I'm assuming this is the kind of thing that's in like might be in a scholastic book, even like when we were kids, or in the
It
library.
I think so. And it was such a weird thing because it's the same, it's my publisher for Lizard and Zoot Suit.
Uh-huh.
And I got an email from their education editor, and she's like, "You're a teacher, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, what did I do?" And she's like, "But you also draw comics." And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "Do you like Garfield?" And I was like, "Yeah." And my son, Dylan, again, um, had sent away to Jim Davis to get an autograph of Garfield. So
No.
he had a Jim Davis sketch autographed on his desk.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, I have to do this. This is, and so they just asked, like, hey, will you just kind of walk people through how to make a comic strip, and you have access to this Garfield library and just use the artwork. So I didn't draw anything, and it was just like,
Right.
this is the process, and then
Yeah.
I got to go access to their library and pull images to tell the story, and that's cool. I think
Which
it's
is I think it was fantastic. Again, I didn't know about this until I saw it in the library. I was like, wait, is this his? Oh my God, that is his.
yeah,
And I
funny.
got it because it's you can get it as an ebook. But what I like about it is it's probably, it's because I'm a big teacher nerd too. But what a great way to break it down in terms of like, here's how you do it. And all the Garfield references are great too. But just like, breaking it down, trying to think about like your characters, who's going to be the main character, who's going to hang out with. Let's figure out the plot, and you're doing a little bit of that, and then it's sort of like setting. How do you draw these areas?
And
all
whoever
really
designed the
cool,
book
man.
was the star, because I didn't design it. I just kind of gave them information and
Yeah,
images, and then I like how they put it together. And it's one of
yeah,
those things where like someone would have bought this for me when I was in first grade.
yep. It would
You
have made
like
it that much
comics, you
easier.
like Garfield, here you
Mm-hmm.
go. Like, this is
Yep.
perfect for you. And I think it's it's all about like the gateway drugs. And Garfield was huge. Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes are just as important to me as Spider-Man and Batman
Sure.
in terms of like opening it. Calvin and Hobbes probably more so than Garfield, because Calvin and
Mm-hmm.
Hobbes pushed the media so far
Mm-hmm.
and was so smart and never talked down to the audience.
Sure.
And I think that's a rite of passage in our house. Like, all my kids have read all the Calvin and Hobbes books around the same age, like 7 or 8.
That's
And
cool.
then Peanuts too, the original ones. And they don't do it because I sit them down and say, you have to read this. It just speaks to that moment right before puberty, right before adolescence, where you're kind of like a little bit rebellious.
That's
And
kind of when I read them.
yeah, and you're a little bit wiser. There's a guy that we went to
Mm-hmm.
Bosco with. His name is, oh man, Chuck was his first. Chuck Yeager. That's how I remember it, because it was like the astronaut. Do you
Oh,
remember Chuck Yeager?
I remember the
Smart dude.
name. Mm-hmm.
So I went to Savio with him, and I remember going to his house because he lived across the street by Thompson Park, and going to his house, and he had Calvin and Hobbes. I was like, "What are these?" And
Yeah.
he's like, and so I would, I had seen them in the newspaper, but I hadn't seen the collected things. and I would just go to his house, and we would like sit quietly in his room and read Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield, and like that like I remember riding my bike away from his house, like thinking about Calvin and Hobbes.
What would that be, like 6th, 7th, or 8th grade?
Probably like that was probably 7th grade.
Okay,
like
because I don't think I was.
Grade.
Yeah, I was older. I think I was like probably 8th grade because I want to say Ted got it in college, and he had the collected book, and I was like, "What is this?" And I was an 8th grader already and loved it.
Yeah, and I remember.
Anyways, you stop distracting me from talking about your stuff, man. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, so I remember walking into one of the science classes in Bosco, and I can picture the room. I could draw the room, and finding out that Watterson was canceling Calvin and Hobbes. It was in the newspaper or something. And I remember going, what? And also finding out that he refused to let people make movies and cartoons. And that was like one of the first moments
market
like,
merch or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Where I was like, oh, that's what integrity is. Okay. Now I know. I don't need any more school today. That was my life lesson.
It's so funny because then you just I remember a little bit earlier in this episode you were calling yourself a corporate not corporate show. What did you call sellout? Corporate sellout.
Yes, that's what I learned. Yeah. I was like, I will not be Watterson. I will not go quietly and live in the woods. Another off topic thing. Did you ever see when he came back and took over that strip for a while?
No.
There was and I'll send it to you, but there's a guy
this century?
Yes. So this guy does this slice of life comic strip, and it's about him being a single guy, and he's at a bar, and he picks up a girl, and she's like, "What do you do for a living?" He's like, "Oh, I draw comic strips." And he says, "What strip do you draw?" And he panics and he goes, "Calvin and Hobbes." And then the next day, it starts with him in bed with the girl, and it's in Watterson style. And everybody's like, wow, that's so smart. Like that he switched styles as he's lying and saying he's Bill Watterson. And it goes on for 2 or 3 weeks. And then you find out Watterson drew those strips.
No.
He came out of retirement because he thought the gag was so funny.
And he did it secretly.
And he did it secretly.
During the duration of the thing. That's awesome. Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like if it was scripted, you wouldn't believe it. But
that's cool.
It's this much of the population cared, and it was awesome.
All right, I want to talk about your stuff, man, and we'll close out just by looking at some of the things that I pulled out. But I will tell you, when I prepped this, you've been busy and you've uploaded some things that I hadn't seen. So like all of this stuff is relatively new, because when I asked you to first do it, that was a while back. So I love Deathlock. That was always a thing that I was just intrigued by the character. You were saying that I was an ex-kid, I was a mutie, tried and true. Like, right. I rock with I've reclaimed the term mutie, but I learned about the Marvel Universe in general because one of the first comics that I got, I don't know if I've ever told you this story about how we got into comic books. My dad, I was in the 1st grade. He came home one day with like this folio of like probably a good 30 comics or so and was like, hey, you guys are going to collect comics now. I'm like, wait, what? And my brother had been always buying comics or like picking up comics since he was a kid, reading other people's stuff. But they were just like these things. I had no idea that, you collect them.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. I still to this day, I asked him once and he was like, I'm not really sure. Like I passed by a comic book store. He went to Another World, I think is what it was called, in Eagle Rock. It's since changed to a different owner. And then he took us there. But I remember when he started, like I guess he had asked the guy, like, hey, I want to get my kids, one's in the 1st grade, one's in the 6th grade. What do you recommend? And he started us off with this stuff. And of course I was 1st grade. So there were like Star Comics, there's the Ewoks, there's, I forget what else Star was doing, but it was Marvel's kid brand. Right. And then, we go to the comic book store one day, like, after that initial run, like, okay, let's get more. But let me pause. In that, there was this thing that looked more like an encyclopedia. It had a big A, and then it said Marvel Universe. And I think he had by that time gotten a couple, like they were A, B, and C or something.
Right. Yeah.
And Marvel encyclopedia. Wait, these are all words. But then I was like, holy crap.
Me,
like,
Dad.
But that's how I got access to understand the rest of the Marvel universe, was by poring over those things. And then month to month, that actually became one of my favorites. And I wasn't necessarily reading everything. I would if something caught my attention, but it was just like, I got introduced to the Marvel universe, right? I was like, wait, these guys are these guys. Wait, how is this guy in this team? But he's just got a solo listing, and all that stuff was just like mind blowing to me. So that's where I first saw Deathlock. And I just thought he was such a cool looking character. And I was like, let me read about this guy. And they're like, they experimented on him. And
he's a pacifist.
Like, yes. And like yet he's got this programming in his brain, and mind blowing. So I love this. And again, in your style, in this very like, I say flat in a loving way, like a flat 2D way, right? Yeah. No, in an art appreciation way. I was never a big Mobius guy, but I really love how you've rendered him here. It's almost
such a weird dude.
Animalistic, dude.
He's a weird dude. I love it. I'm going through my 70s Marvel phase that I missed I wasn't born.
I can tell. This is all Ted's jam too, because he was a 70s kid.
And it's and I did it with film because I said 70s freaked me out. So I went back and watched like a lot of 70s film. Mm-hmm. And it's very nihilistic. There was not a lot of hope in the 70s, is what I'm getting at. There was a lot of need for
Vietnam
vengeance.
War. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot going on. New York was a very different place in the 70s.
A lot, like Doug Moench was like a long-haired radical, who walked into Marvel while people were wearing suits and ties, and he was walking in there, with his long hair. And Marv Wolfman was another guy that, they were just influenced so much by the 70s. And you can see that about 74 is where it's just weird. Like there's Werewolf by Night, and there's, just weird stuff.
The Conan comics were going. Yep.
Yeah. Gene Colan was drawing, Tomb of Dracula turned out to be one of my favorite books I've ever read. Blade shows up in it. It's awesome. And you'll see that's where my head
so that's where this more recent stuff has been coming in, because I was like, I didn't see these are cool. But let's take a look at the ones that I did pull. Like look at that, man. That's dope.
Yeah, that's my Tomb of Dracula. Yeah. Look at
your color choices too, to kind of mimic the production.
Yeah.
With that lighter layer on top of like a black halftone. So good.
And no one's ever going to pay me to draw like this. So this is me just being like, what if I was in the bullpen? Like that, like that. That's my Mad Men, like how people are like, I wish I was in the Mad Men era. And I was like, I wish I was in the Marvel bullpen in 1970s.
That'd be kind of wild.
Yeah. And so I think it also creeps me out still. Like I still read it and it still freaks me out. This guy was from LA and upper middle class, and gets bit by a werewolf and has werewolf blood, and he doesn't get bit by a werewolf. It's just his curse. And
I love that it genuinely creeps you out. There's something about that time period. It's true. It is a little. Yeah.
Cocaine.
Things get a little more sanitized in the 80s, though. Things get a little more sanitized, and so there is definitely something that's a little bit more rough around the edges that I could see could make people nervous.
Well, I think too in the 70s, because everything was so nihilistic, is that there weren't happy endings. And in the 80s, when we grew up, you could watch the most violent thing ever, but it still had a happy ending. Like Rambo still has a happy ending. Rocky has a happy ending. Like there's always a lesson at the end. And in the 70s, it wasn't. Like things would just end.
Yeah.
And I think it's just it makes it a little bit sadder for me, I think. And which makes interesting storytelling.
It does. And I'm glad it makes you uncomfortable. That means
did you see my Ghost Rider in Bellflower? That
I did. So that was one of them that I pulled out later, but we can go ahead and talk about it now. Yeah, this is again where we went to high school. There's the big old gigantic bagel.
Which I've never eaten.
Oops. Is this
Have
just
you ever
something you had
seen
an
it?
itch for? No, I have not.
Well, I like the Reyes Ghost Rider because he's from LA,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do something in Bellflower because I think Bellflower is one of the most interesting places because it's a weird, not quite middle class, but not quite impoverished, but it has like a very specific like Southern California culture. Like you'll
Mhm.
have, you know, a Tams, but you also had skate shops. Like everything that
Right.
was trendy. We had a comic book store. We had a skate shop.
Mhm.
We had like it was trying so hard to not be what it was all the time. And I think I go when I go visit there, it still feels like that. Like as a city, you're kind of like, well, we're kind of broke and we live in an apartment and everybody we know is kind of broke, but there's this skate shop down the street that's selling decks that we can't afford, and there's a comic book store, and there was a
That's
collectible
funny.
bookstore. There was a collectible bookstore next to that comic book store in Buffalo. Remember that one next to the barbershop?
Empire.
Yeah, that was my origin
Empire.
story. That's my comic book origin story because I
Empire
got used to
Comics.
walk
Yeah.
there to get my haircut at Vic and Arnold's
Hmm.
barbershop, and it was $5, and my mom would send me with a $5 bill, and the other dollar
Uh-huh.
was supposed to be a tip. And then one time I was waiting outside, and they had the 4 for a quarter comic or 4 for $1 comics, and I
Uh-huh.
said, "You're not getting a tip today. I'm getting Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, so I can read the Spider-Ham story in the back."
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then and that's it. So every time I went to get a haircut, which was like every 2 weeks, I was getting 4 comics. And then it became like that's when the obsession kicked in, where I was like, "Oh, I got to
Mhm.
get a haircut next week. Let me go dig through the couch cushions. I'm going to scrounge up as many quarters as I can find." And I would
Yeah.
anything that I would just go through that quarter bin, and then eventually I'd go inside and be like, "Oh, these come out every week? What the heck?" Like there's a new one every week. So I never it's not like I started
Did
reading
you
them
ever
and I
get
was
to
like,
know the owner of that guy? The owner of that
he was
shop?
he was not friendly to me.
Yeah, he was never friendly. That dude was like, but you could tell that he was into young folks buying comics, dude with glasses. For some
Yeah.
reason in my brain, he looked like I don't know,
I
like,
also used to go in there with our buddy Victor,
oh yeah,
and
was he in the comics?
he was into Spider-Man. He was a Spider-Man
Okay.
junkie. And so
I think I know what you're gonna say. Was he stealing comics?
he was he was liberating comics from the wall for me. He was like the Che Guevara of comics. And so
man.
here's why
Yeah.
this dude. There's two things that this kid has done and I don't even know where he is or how he is or where he is or anything now. But two things that this kid has done. One is I used to have really bad asthma, and he would come
Uh-huh.
over when I was really sick, and he would sit at my bed on the floor, and he would play with my toys and read my comics and talk to me as if I was awake for hours.
Oh.
And so forever indebted to that. And two, there was the Daredevil cover, No More Mr. Nice Guy, where he's holding the gun, that I
Uh-huh.
would go in that shop and it was a wall comic and I would just stare at it. I was like, what happens in there? And again, this is pre-internet, right? If you don't have the comic in your hand, you don't know what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. You don't
There's
know.
no trade
Uh-huh.
paperbacks for it. You can't
Yep.
go to the library and check it out. You can't go online. So there's this cover, and I was mesmerized. And I love Daredevil. And I was just like, what happens in there? Why does he have a gun? What in God's name is happening in this book? And it was like $50 at the time or $40, whatever.
Oh,
And one day Victor showed up and he had it for me. And he just
no shit.
I don't know how he got it. Maybe he bought it. Maybe he didn't. But I have that comic, and it's one of those comics where it did not disappoint. It's where he shoots bullseye, and
That guy. That's wild.
so that's the thing where I'm like, that was my origin story, and it was because it was in proximity, and
Yeah.
because we were let free to roam around. And I love how different you can tell how different our family structures were because not having a dad
Of
and having
course.
a single mom,
Different
there
deal.
was a lot
Yeah.
of me wandering around, and
Yeah.
thankfully I wandered into a comic book store. Whereas yours is like, here, I'm
Sure.
as your
Yeah.
father, I'm giving you this gift of knowledge and love, and mine was like, I'm stealing this. Like I stole that dude's tip, you know, years of not tipping the barber for the selfish love of comics. So
Man, that's wild.
so thank God they were comics, because I think a lot of the morality, you read a comic and you're like, oh, they just talked how bad about stealing is, and I didn't tip this guy. So
And
when I started
Victor,
having my own money, I started tipping much better out of guilt.
nice.
Yeah,
That's amazing that Victor took that. Victor ended up being the singer of my first
of
band.
your band.
He
Yeah,
wasn't the first singer, but he ended up being the singer.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, man. I didn't realize that. Hey, I want to make sure that I look at some of your work and I share some of your work with the viewers. So here's just we'll jam through these, but I'm sure folks can see what a talented guy this guy is. I knew him, we were drawing comics back in the day. I remember you. Still to this day, my favorite quote of yours is, "The Hulk wouldn't do that in real life." You remember
that? I stand by it. Okay, everything is.
I remember just stopping at it, like thinking, does he realize that the Hulk?
I can tell you real? Where we were. We were walking. You know how there was the big English building, and then we walked, and there was like the building that was attached to the chapel in the main building.
Okay,
and it was like a coverage, and I remember walking and saying that, and continuing walking, and then going, where did he go? And you're just dying. I was like, what did I say? We're having a serious conversation.
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
dude, this stuff is great. We were looking at the Calavera PI stuff, but I really, again, the use of color. This is graphic nerd here. There's something real classic about the way your work evolved. I really like it, and I know. Yeah.
Do you know where that's from? That homage is? Does your comic book brain realize where I stole from?
Daredevil?
Born Again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the first grown-up comic I read. And again, walking home from Savio, going in there to that shop and seeing that was the first graphic novel I saw. It was a trade paper. It was a trade paperback, right? It was like a collection, but I didn't know. So I just thought it was like this original thing. And I remember going in there, and that's why the guy probably wasn't nice to me, because I would just go in there and look at it and be like, what is this? Why is there heroin in here? What is happening? And I
was grumpy
to Mark Avila, I think his name is. He was in our grade.
It's funny you say these names, and I remember the names, but I'm so bad I can't remember the people. But
I sold him my Jimmy Superfly Snuka Hulk Hogan figure, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, and I think Andre the Giant for $20.
Nice.
And I got the $20 from him and walked immediately to the comic book store and bought Daredevil Born Again and did it as my book report in 7th grade.
No way. Okay. Yeah. That was a hardcore book report. I mean, you were talking about heroin. You're talking about
and Mazzucchelli and Mazzucchelli and Frank Miller. It was one of those. It's one of those books where it's like formative, and that's real paper, people.
I was gonna say, do you do a lot of work on paper still, or mostly digital?
I sketchbook a lot, but I love drawing on paper. It just it's not a smart, again, corporate sellout. It's not a feasible way to work in a timely manner.
Sure.
Because I use so much black that and I'm so meticulous in spotting it that it just doesn't make sense. Like if I could, totally I would. Get it. And I every time I start a new project, I'm like, this one I'm doing on paper, and then I get my deadline, go, this one I'm doing digitally again, because all that black, it's one button.
I'm lazy. So one thing, I don't really have a good computer. I used to have an iPad, it died, so I couldn't do the digital anymore. So I had to do a project recently that it was basically had a lot of black. I'm just like, okay, I want to get the edges because I wanted that hand line. And I want to fill in some of that, but I just filled in enough so that I could then go into Photoshop and select the white and control delete.
Like the feathering, all that stuff. That's my stuff. And in a perfect universe, I could afford to do that. and that would make sense.
Yeah.
And oh, my kid just got home. And it would make sense for me, but it does not make sense. Like,
Of
again,
course.
like it's become, and my sons make, and my daughter make fun of me because it's my dream job, but I still complain about it.
Of course, we're
You know,
human.
like
But I like
it's
the hand touch here, though. There's still got an organic
yeah,
touch, even once you've
yeah.
brought it into. Are you using Photoshop, Procreate?
That was, I think Clip Studio
Oh,
is
I
mostly
don't
what I
even know
use.
what that is. I don't even
Clip
know what that
Studio
is.
is it's the greatest program for people who don't want to work digitally, because
Okay.
it started off as this program called Manga Studio, and 20 years ago, and
Uh,
everything does what it's supposed to do. That's why I fell in love with it, because everybody was drawing in Photoshop, and
right.
Photoshop, a brush doesn't look like a brush. It's like a little cursor.
Right.
Right, and you have to adjust everything and do all that stuff. This
Right.
was early Photoshop. Clip Studio, like, you clicked on the one that said brush and it worked like a brush. You clicked on the one that said G pen and it worked like a nib. And so
Right.
I kind of, and you could, it, like, I hate doing panels and laying them out, and you could just drop templates of panels on it. And same thing with word balloons and all that stuff. And so it
It's
was
made
just,
for, it's
yes,
made for this.
and it's
Photoshop, we got to
evolved.
remember it's for photo editing,
Right.
and so it has a very different
Yeah.
model analogy.
And it's
Yeah.
evolved into something that you can paint in and you can do all that stuff with, but it's still at the very basic level. It's just a really good program for making comics.
I love process stuff. I love seeing this kind of thing. Really great stuff.
Thanks, man.
How this is one of your older books though, right? At what point, how long
That
ago
was
was this
Lizard,
one?
yeah. That was what I think at least 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years
Jeez.
ago. And again, that's one where, oh, there's Daredevil.
I love
Where I
this.
just said, where I just, kind of stumbled into it. Yeah, this is, I don't have a lot of bucket lists, like, I understand, like, there are people who are better, but this is just, he's the man. Like, it's just a cool comic. He's just a cool character. And again, the fact that there's a TV show and there's been several seasons of it, of Daredevil, it's
Yeah.
like how can I be mad at it? I remember when he was on the Incredible Hulk special show and he was wearing all black, and I had that poster on my room. Like, because I was
I'm
so
not the blind
excited.
guy, even though I've got this
Yeah.
black thing
I'm
over my.
covering,
Yeah.
it makes no sense why I'm covering my eyes.
Yeah. I
But
love that though. I'm with you. Like, me and Ted were hyped, that and the Thor one, even though the
the
Thor one we
Thor
kind
one,
of
yeah.
laughed at.
And there was supposed to be another one
Oh,
after
so
that, and I'm trying to remember who it was. It was going to be someone. I was like, oh, I can't wait, and then it just it
didn't
fizzled out.
happen.
Yeah, I'm trying.
It ended with a trial of the Incredible Hulk, and then that was it.
Yes, and that
These are great, man.
Thanks, man. And I loved that Incredible Hulk show, and I loved that they were just like, no, Lou Ferrigno is the same guy as David Banner. They called him David Banner, not Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
Do you know why? Do you
No,
know the
was it
story
a
there?
rights thing? No.
No, the creator of the
Oh
show,
no,
or
they
the
said it.
actor,
I know. It
it
was a
wasn't
homophobic thing,
masculine.
right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was not
Yeah.
masculine enough. Bruce
Bruce.
was a feminine name.
Yeah.
And I was like, Bruce Wayne. Like,
Oh, was
what?
it masculinity? In my brain, for some reason, I heard that the name sounded gay, but maybe it was more about
Probably
just
what they said.
feminine.
I
Okay.
mean, I'm sure it's been watered down, but that was the
That's
thing.
right.
And
I remember
I
that.
think it was the actor, and not Lou Ferrigno, the other guy. I
Oh, was
remember
it? What's
seeing
his name? Bill
the
Bixby?
guy. Yeah, I think it was him. That he was like, I was like, your name's Bill Bixby. Yeah, like, you sound like a comic book character. I
Oh,
I remember
man,
taking Lisa
Hollywood.
right before Comic-Con blew up, like in the 90s. I would take Lisa to Comic-Con, poor thing, and drag her there. And Lou Ferrigno was just like standing there and nobody was around. And I'm like, I will give you $25 if you walk over to Lou Ferrigno and slap him. Or I will, like, it was just like a running joke. I will give you $30 if you run over to Lou Ferrigno and call him a girl. Like, it was just part, like, a tradition. Like, we would see Lou Ferrigno,
And Lisa is petite, so that would have
Lisa is
been a
petite,
thing to see.
It would have been the funniest thing ever. And like, the offers got more ridiculous, and the prices got higher, and then it just kind of, he was just a nice guy. He's just a nice human being.
He's a really cool dude. I have had the chance to meet him when what is it
Wonderful.
called? Whoa, when Wonder. No, but when it was up here. Used to be up in San
Okay.
Francisco.
Yeah.
When I first moved here.
Do you want a
This is
Felicia Hardy
great.
story? Do you want to know a Felicia Hardy lore since you like lore?
Sure. Yeah.
So Felicia Hardy, okay, it was originally designed as a Spider-Woman villain, and Spider-Woman's name is her maiden name is, or her real name is now I'm blanking on it.
I don't remember. Were you talking red and yellow Spider-Woman?
Yes, Jessica Drew.
Drew.
Jessica Drew was named for Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew. Yeah.
So Felicia Hardy.
Oh, the Hardy Boys
was going to be her villain, and it was the Hardy Boys, and it was Marv Wolfman's just little joke to himself. And then they moved. They loved the design so much that they moved her to Spider-Man, and he was irritated because the joke didn't work.
Sure.
Yeah, but that's why
cool. I didn't know that. That's hilarious.
That's why she's Felicia Hardy, and
Hardy
the other
and Drew.
Isn't that funny?
It's funny. Jessica Drew was one of those. Did she start as a comic book character?
Yep.
Okay.
She started in
because I remember her on the cartoon, the old cartoon back in the day. I was super into. But anyway, she was cool.
She died in the
this thing.
Yeah,
we looked at this thing. We looked at. This is my jam, dude. The just again, high contrast, simplified. I love it. It's so graphic. Even this, give me the blacks, the shadows of a smoke cloud, an explosion. Very cool.
And a lot of these are just done because I want to know how to. There's something that I want to try, and then that's where it's never like, oh, I want to draw Spidey. It's let me see if I can figure out how to do smokestack or something. And
love it.
So yeah, that's how that stuff comes about.
All right, man. We've been going. It's about 2 hours now. I appreciate we ended back where we started with Spider-Man, man. I'm looking forward to that movie. We need to get together a little bit more often. We can talk about other stuff. I would love to catch you up on all the, because I like getting people's reactions to like, what's with toys? Yeah, no, it's wild. Look at the sculpt, man, the details.
That's cool.
But we'll talk another day. This is perfect.
Maybe when you're in town, we'll see if I can
do a live thing. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to come through.
Again, as it's saying at the bottom, folks, again, sorry. And I know I didn't reference it as much as I usually do, but this is a pre-record. So thank you very much for hanging out and watching us live. Today, me hanging out with an old buddy. That's pretty much what it was. We were just kind of going all over the place, me and Marco. What should folks look out for? Anything that's coming up?
I'm working on a really big graphic novel that's not announced yet. And then once it's announced, it will be a cool thing. It'll be, it's exciting. But right now, what do I have? There's a Kickstarter that just ended that I did some artwork for, but I don't control it. It was for Monsterverse, and it was it was Weird Tales, the old magazine Weird Tales.
Oh, cool.
It's a comic anthology that should be coming out. And then I did Vampirilla and Red Sonja something or other with Everybody Zombies Except Them. And that came out last year. But I saw
I did see some of that stuff on there.
I was
excited that you're doing Vampirilla.
I've been lucky to play with some different toys, but I think going forward, I think it's going to be a lot more of things that are unique to me. I think that's where the next step is going, unless they fail, in which case, corporate sellout.
No, come on, man. I'm really loving the original stuff too. I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of you, man. I'm like happy for you. It's so cool. This is awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you to everybody who's hung out with us. I hope you had a good time. Again, meeting another creator. I have no idea who's coming on next week, so just look out. Same time, 3:45 p.m. Sunday afternoons Pacific. Follow the channel, do the likes, the subscribes, and all the things that YouTube says. Okay. Thanks, Marco. I don't really have a good way to end it. Just, I'm going to play music. I'm going to put this thing on and then hang out and we can talk after.
All right,
real quick. All right, folks. Thank you very much. Music plays now, I think. Oh, here it is. All right. Bye. Yay.
Hey.
So corny. Whatever.
Is that you playing?
It is not, but the beginning kind of is. But anyways, so I kind of do the talk over thing in the end. But